Welcome, everyone. My name is Megan Hurdle. I'm the Deputy Secretary for Biodiversity and Habitat at California Natural Resources Agency. And one of the favorite parts of my job is that I get to work on California's 30 by 30, the effort to conserve 30% of our lands and coastal waters by 2030. We're super excited to have all of you here joining us today to learn a little bit about the 30 by 30 Ambassadors program that we're launching. A few quick housekeeping things, and then I'm going to kick us off with a video. First of all, this is a Zoom webinar format, which means that we would ask that you put any of your questions in the Q&A box. That will allow our panelists and presenters to both answer them throughout the webinar, as well as to come to them if we have time at the end to do a little bit of Q&A. Also, we're recording this webinar. You'll be able to find a recording of this on our 30 by 30 Ambassadors page. So we'll be sure to make sure you get a link from that, and you'll be able to watch it again if you want to find any more information. So before I turn it over to our first speaker, I actually wanted to start us off with a little bit of video to get us inspired on why we are all here today. Tell me if you can see it. Okay. Thanks for So with that inspiration, again, thank you so much for being part of the 30 by 30 movement. And I'd love to welcome my colleague, Assistant Secretary for Biodiversity and Habitat, Madeline Drake, to now take over and move us forward. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you, Megan, and welcome everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Sound great, Madeline.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Well, welcome. We are very thrilled to have you all here and for your interest in our new 30 by 30 Ambassadors program. Because with that inspiring video, nature needs you now more than ever to really help us build this 30 by 30 movement. And we want to give a huge thank you to both California Department of Fish and Wildlife and California State Parks for joining us in this movement building so that we can create the first ever 30 by 30 Ambassadors program. So today I'm going to share a little bit more of an overview of 30 by 30, and then we have some other speakers today that are going to talk about why we want to do the 30 by 30 Ambassadors program and how you can apply to become a part of the first cohort. So to start off, I think the video highlighted very well already, but California has just incredible biodiversity. And I think if you're on this webinar, hopefully you think so too. So we have so many iconic, cute, cool species, many that are found nowhere else on Earth, but are unfortunately under threat. So you might hear a lot that we are one of the world's biodiversity hotspots. That means we have more species or hotspotted species found nowhere else on Earth, but unfortunately those species are under threat. And one of the things that I love about California is how we have incredible nature that we are a part of, right? So people in our communities really enjoy nature as well. And we actually need it for our mental and physical well-being, from hiking, camping, surfing, even using it for working lands. These nature is really important to our local communities. So when we see headlines, things like humans are speeding extinction and altering the natural world at an unprecedented rate, or humans have been pushing the climate into unprecedented territory, or climate change could displace 200 million people within their own countries by 2050, or biodiversity crisis affects billions across the world, those are things that don't feel great because we don't want to lose those opportunities to enjoy California, but also we really need those resources in order for the world to thrive and survive. But there is hope, as the video mentioned, and we're really be proud of that. So countries from all over the world came together to say, and scientists, that if we could conserve 30% of lands and waters around the world by 2030, then we'll have a fighting chance against those crises that we face. And California wanted to be a part of that solution. And in fact, we were one of the first to be a part of that solution. So in October 2020, Governor Gavin Newsom signed Executive Order N8220. And really broadly, this was to expand nature-based solutions to achieve California's climate change and biodiversity goals. But really importantly, it committed the state, one of the first governments to commit to the 30 by 30 goal to conserve 30% of California's lands and coastal waters by 2030. We're incredibly fortunate that in the legislature in 2023 then codified this into state law, so it will go beyond the Newsom administration. That executive order called us to put together a strategy, but we knew we would only be successful if we had input from a wide array of Californians. So we held about 18 months of public comment and public engagement before we released a strategy. So we had 9 regional workshops, 5 topical advisory panels, an online survey. We did 70 plus tribal consultations. We received over 1,000 letters. We had an advisory committee, public meetings, many ways for people to provide their input and to really help us build a strategy that people could see themselves in and could really be a part of reaching this goal. So in April of 2022, on Earth Day, California released our Pathways to 30 by 30 strategy. And this is the guiding framework for how we want to achieve California's 30 by 30 goal. So one of the guiding pieces is our key objectives and our core commitments, and we have three of each. So what our key objectives are, what we're looking and trying to find in conservation for 30 by 30. We want to protect and restore biodiversity, to expand access to nature, and to mitigate and build resilience for climate change. And our three core commitments are what we want to be thinking about throughout all of that is to advance justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, to strengthen our tribal partnerships, and to protect our economic prosperity, clean energy resources, and food supply, recognizing that conservation has to be done with all these other priorities of the state. Really importantly, though, that Pathways to 30 by 30 strategy defined what we mean by a 30 by 30 conservation area. So that is land and coastal water areas that are durably protected and managed to sustain functional ecosystems, both intact and restored, and the diversity of life that they support. So the two key things there are the durability of the protection as well as managed for biodiversity. So where are we at now? Well, the state is at 26.1% of our lands and 21.9% of our coastal waters. And since we released that Pathways to 30 by 30 strategy in 2022, we've added more than 2.5 million acres. We're on the right track to achieving this goal, but we still have more to do. So a little visual representation of what's included on that map. So the top row are things that wouldn't count for 30 by 30, things like a golf course, a solar field, or row crops. While those have very important benefits for our community, like clean energy, like recreation, like food, those aren't necessarily managed for biodiversity. There are small things that can be done, but they, on a whole, are not managed for biodiversity, and they might not have that durability piece. The bottom row are all things that do count for 30 by 30. So in that first picture there, you'll see a photo from Yosemite National Park. And importantly, you'll see the river that runs through Yosemite National Park. One of the questions we often get is, do freshwater count, since we use the words land and coastal waters? Well, it does. It just counts on the land side. That second picture on the bottom row, that's actually up at our Redwood State Park. So this is an area that was acquired and is now being restored to be a part of the state park. So even though there's still restoration being done, it does have that durability and it will be managed in perpetuity for biodiversity. And for the last picture there, I'm actually going to turn it over to my colleague, Mike Esgro with the Ocean Protection Council to share a little bit more about our coastal water side. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks so much, Madeline, and thanks for that introduction. Yeah, I'm Mike. I work at the Ocean Protection Council, which is part of the California Natural Resources Agency, and together with my colleague Jen Eckerly, our director, who's on this webinar as well, we are leading our efforts to conserve 30% of coastal waters by 2030. So Megan and Madeline's counterparts on the salty side, as we like to call it. And I'm so excited about this picture in particular, Madeline, that you highlighted, because A, it's from one of my favorite places on the planet, kelp forest down at the Channel Islands. You can tell that big old sheep head there, but also because it's from one of our 124 underwater parks or marine protected areas. This network of marine protected areas we have that spans the entire coast, covers 16.2% of state waters, and really forms the foundation of how we are achieving 30 by 30 in coastal waters. I'm really, really proud to report that just last year, our marine protected areas were awarded a really prestigious international certification, the International Union for Conservation of Nature Green List Award, that really elevated our MPAs as the international gold standard for marine conservation. Next slide, please. So many of you may be aware that since the publication of Pathways to 30 by 30, every year we release a progress report. And the idea behind the progress report is to not only highlight where we are in terms of actual acres conserved and percentage conserved, but also to talk about different highlights of the past year. And so this past year in particular was a really big progress report, lots of accomplishments under 30 by 30. The Ocean Protection Council also released a roadmap to achieving 30 by 30 in coastal waters, which really kind of drills down into those two elements of the definition of conserved, the durable protection and the management for biodiversity benefit. Because as you can imagine, things look a little bit different in terms of protection in coastal waters. The ocean's a public trust resource, nobody owns it, so it just looks a bit different than on land. But We have a lot of different ways to achieve conservation in coastal waters. MPAs are the foundation, but conservation can be broader than just MPAs. And so that's one of the reasons we're so excited at OPC about the 30 by 30 Ambassadors Program. There are so many people who come to our coast every year who love our coast and ocean. And I think this Ambassador Program can really help to translate our work for those folks who are coming to visit our coast and ocean or who live there, and also to really help foster that sense of long-term stewardship and care for these special places. And with that, thank you. I'll be around to answer questions. I'll just hand it back now to Madeline to talk about CA Nature.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. So we do have a series of mapping tools where folks can track how we're doing in achieving our 30 by 30 goal, as well as look for opportunities for where they might find conservation opportunities. And then the 30 by 30 partnership is what's really driving this movement. This is where partners from all over California can come together. And it looks like a lot of different things. It looks like really formal meetings. It looks like talking at a happy hour. It looks like tabling an event. It looks like talking while out on the trail. And it also looks like things like social media. And so this is where we really see the 30 by 30 Ambassadors Program helping us build this 30 by 30 partnership so that we have a movement all working together towards this goal of hope. And there are many things that people can do beyond just going out and conserving land that will help us achieve this goal. They can share the story. They can sign up for our newsletter. They can conserve biodiversity in their own backyard. They can ask their region to commit to 30 by 30. And they can check out those maps that I had talked about to see what counts and where are their future opportunities. So what does success look like? And this is the guiding principle that our team looked at when looking at public input that we received. So these are real answers from real people about what they want it to look like when we get to 2030. Things like clean water, better air quality, more open spaces, more plants, more trees, more animals, more insects, healthy ecosystems and communities. Biodiversity losses are halted and reversed. Reversal of greenhouse gas emissions. Everyone can access green space within a 10-minute walk. Our kids have the same natural world that we have, and even better, our children live in a healthier environment than we do. So with that, I'm really excited about this program and about what you all can help us do to achieve the 30 by 30 goal. And I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague Marnin with California Department of Fish and Wildlife to talk a little bit more about what this 30 by 30 Ambassadors Program is and why we need it. Over to you, Marnin.
Thanks so much, Madeline. Well, hey, everybody. My name is Martin Robbins. I'm the statewide interpretive services manager for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And I want to start by speaking directly to the interpreters in the audience today, as well as everybody involved in the outreach and education space. I began as an interpreter working at Muir Woods National Monument for the National Park Service over 30 years ago. And what inspired me to start along this incredible career were the words of Freeman Tilden, who is considered the really the father of the field of interpretation. And he said these words in his book, Interpreting Our Heritage, in 1957. He said, through interpretation, understanding, through understanding, appreciation, and through appreciation, protection. And those words have stayed with me as founding principles for my work and for the teams that I've had the privilege of working with. Interpretation has the power to transform people to become conservationists. And there is no better opportunity as interpreters to utilize those skills than in the service of this incredible initiative, the 30 by 30 initiative. California is a very big state. You know, the Natural Resources Agency, which I'm a part of, has a lot of people working for it. There's over 27,000 employees. That sounds like a lot of people, but that pales in comparison to California, right? With a population of over 40 or close to 40 million people. In order to achieve the goals of 30 by 30, to conserve 30% of our terrestrial and marine ecosystems by 2030, will require so many people across so many different fields and backgrounds and ways of life to feel like they have a stake in this as well. And I'm of the belief that interpreters and other people involved in outreach and education have a key role in helping to ensure that people from all backgrounds and walks of life feel like they have a stake in this as well. Like I said, 30 by 30 is not just a policy goal, it is a people-powered movement. It's really all of us working together to make this happen. And so the goal of the 30 by 30 ambassadors program is to ultimately create an army of people across the state taking voluntary actions to help conserve biodiversity for the future and being part of this larger movement. We wanted to create this training to make sure that we have a core constituency, a core group of people who are all singing off the same song sheet to make sure we're all working across our various sectors in tandem to be communicating basically the same message. Communicating about biodiversity and conservation is complicated. It requires both connecting to people where they are and helping to bridge where people are to some new concepts. And so that's part of the reason that we wanted to gather some of the leading experts together to help convey what those techniques are, the best messages around 30 by 30, and how to have inclusive conversations with people from all backgrounds. Consistent and accurate messaging is really important. As we are building this movement, we want to make sure that there are proof points along the way that everybody is referring back to, and making sure that those conversations are as broad, working with people from as many backgrounds as possible. Like I said at the beginning, interpreters have a special place a special role in this. And research has borne that out. People involved in this space, in the outreach and education space, have been shown to be very effective, trusted communicators for science. And so bringing you all together in one space will really help to kind of carry that forward into lots of spaces. And so who is the training for? The training is for interpreters, educators, and others involved in outreach and communication, like environmental scientists, members from nonprofit organizations, tribal entities, state, federal, and local agencies. All are welcome to apply. Unfortunately, we will only have a limited number of seats at the table. We have about 30 seats that we can fill. And so we hope to continue to find ways to bridge with many people throughout this year and into the over the next several years to continue to build that movement of interpreters and others involved in outreach and education. So I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth Evans at California State Parks, who's going to tell you a bit about what you can expect at the training itself.
Thank you, Marnin. And we're just going to share a couple slides here. Just give us a second. All right. 1 sec. All right. Do we see some park slides out there, folks? All right.
It's great.
Good. Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Evans. I'm the statewide manager of interpretive programs for our watershed, coastal, and climate programs across California state parks. And I'm joined today by my colleague Cleo Domingo, who's our statewide climate and environmental literacy coordinator. And we're going to share a little bit more about the logistics of this 30 by 30 Outreach Ambassador project. But before we go into all the nitty-gritty, I just want to take a moment. Now, we've shared a lot of information with you all, but let's imagine we could beam ourselves a year into the future. Maybe you're out on a first day hike in one of your local state parks, thinking about what you've accomplished in the year prior. Maybe you're working on an annual report or doing your, performance appraisals for the year. Who knows? But maybe 30 or more people on this call will be reflecting on some really cool experiences. Perhaps you and your team were out in local libraries sharing conversations about conservation. Maybe your team has led some pop-up experiences at a farmer's market talking about protected local lands. Maybe you're on college campuses inviting the next generation of leaders in California to take part in the 30 by 30 movement. Or maybe you're getting your hands dirty in local trail stewardship activities. And maybe, just maybe, you and your team have reached about 1,000, maybe more, maybe 10,000 people with messages of 30 by 30. And this will happen if you set a really good intention. And if you want to join in our ambassador project to really take a leadership role in extending this message to your team. So one of the reasons California State Parks is involved is we are a really big agency managing a lot of land in California, 280 state park units. We're the largest state park system in America. And we also have one of the largest workforces dedicated to interpreting natural resources. And even more volunteers and partners connected with our state park staff to make this happen. So we're really hoping that we round up a good contingent of state park staff and interpreters to be a part of this movement, to infuse a lot of the activities we're already doing to increase access, understanding, build connections and relationships, but kind of align it with this greater statewide movement to communicate about 30 by 30 as our other speakers have led us up to at this point. So one of the things that we're going to be looking for and why this really matters to us in state parks is that, we can't do this alone. We need a much broader community. And so we're going to be asking for a select cohort of about 30 folks. We're going to just be playing with this 30 number a lot throughout this project, but our aim is to find 30 people that can make a couple key commitments for 2026. So we're going to ask that you make arrangements to join us in Sacramento for a full day training on Tuesday, March 3rd. It's coming up pretty soon. So we do ask that you can find a way to get yourself to Sacramento to be a part of the in-person training workshop. And then at that point, we're going to be training you in sort of a train the trainer model to go back to your local community, connect with your staff, partners, colleagues, neighborhoods, to then train at least 30 people in your area to go out and activate community engagement experiences, maybe social media campaigns, all sorts of activities that suit your organization's mission that extend this 30 by 30 messaging wherever you may be. And as others have mentioned, we can't do this just in Sacramento or just in our state managed lands. We want a good diversity of Californians incorporated into this project. So while we will have, definitely a set amount of ambassadors, we do expect to probably be from Lake Parks and Fish and Wildlife and California Natural Resource Agency communities. We definitely want to expand that and have a broader team working together as a cohort. And just like any major project and initiative, it's really important that we share out successes. So one of the other commitments that we'll ask is that you don't just, show up at training and disappear. We're going to be staying in touch with you and asking that you share out some, key statistics, the number of people reached, the types of experiences activated, and share back your successes with all of us involved in this project. So if you already have a team you're connected with that's involved in sort of informal science education or community engagement or, resource protection activities, chances are this might be something that you can infuse into your regular work without adding too many new things, just kind of beefing up your unified messaging on this project. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Cleo Domingo, who's been our mastermind of getting our application set up here and a lot of our logistical coordination for this project. So Cleo, can you tell us how to actually apply?
Yeah, so hopefully this process should be pretty simple. We've got the classic Google form for you, which I'll put into the chat. You can follow it along with me, but before you actually apply, make sure you can attend that in-person training on March 3rd in Sacramento. Also make sure that you have a way to get there, whether it's by carpool or by yourself, and also a way to cover lodging. You'll also want to make sure that you have support from your managers and supervisors. And something that's optional is to try to find support from your friends groups or your local nonprofits that may have ways to support you to going to this 30 by 30 training. So there's 3 sections to this ambassador application. There's a little progress bar on the bottom so you can see how far you are in it, but it should be relatively quick. Most of it is that classic like name, first name, last name, phone number, email, but also there's a couple of more in-depth questions that we're asking just so we can cater this program and training to best fit your needs that you'll take back with you to your programs. So for this application, the deadline is January 28th, so that's towards the end of this month. And after reviewing all of your applications, you should be getting a response from us by February 6th. And after that, the following week, you'll also be getting a confirmation from us. So that's it. We have about a month for this whole application process and responses, and then we'll get back to you. And I'll pass it back to Elizabeth to talk a little bit more about it. Oh, you're still muted.
Let's see. Classic. Okay. We're going to end this here with a little bit more about the specifics of what to expect next if you are selected into this ambassador cohort, and also, what to do if you're not selected and how you can still be involved. So as Cleo just mentioned, we're trying to identify our cohort here pretty soon. So if you're selected, you'll hear back via email by February 6th. I imagine there could always be somebody whose plans change. Maybe there's a waiting list. So, within early February, we're going to know who our team is to go forth with us. And so if you are selected, we'll ask that during the month of February, you start making your plans to arrange for travel. And then also start to identify your team. Think about the people that you're going to be bringing this training back to and kind of start to feel out their availability. Maybe think of some dates and timelines for implementing training in your local area. And then in March itself, we are going to be having just a full day of information sharing at you, but also practice and a toolkit to help you work through your training in your local areas. So part of our, content knowledge is going to include a really special guest. We're going to have Allison Axton, the director of the USC Center for Climate and Journalism. She's phenomenal and will be sharing a lot of great information about biodiversity and communication best practices. And, after a morning of, learning and sharing a little bit about who everyone is, we'll have lunch provided by our partner, Parks California. So thank you to them for helping us all out, because it'll be a little bit of a working lunch, networking, getting to know your cohort better. And then the afternoon part of our session, where we're going to really spend time working together. It'll be an active work session to plan the training that you're going to bring back to your community. So we're hoping to take care of this, all in this one day. So you can learn the content, become familiar with our toolkit, and then actually have a little bit of an action plan to go back to your community, deliver the training, and map out some of the experiences and activation opportunities that you want to plan for the rest of spring and summer. So You can train your team kind of on your own timeline in early spring, but we're really hoping everyone is out and starting to have these conversations, and the ripple effect will grow throughout the summer months. And then toward the end of summer, we'll be checking back in with everyone to report outcomes. I mean, I'm sure you'll be hearing from a few of us throughout. And, we'll be keeping each other connected with some, hashtags and social media magic, all that good stuff. And by, fall, we'll be starting to reflect on some really cool successes across California. So if you are part of this ambassador cohort, this is going to be awesome. A really, I think relatively reasonable commitment for what can be a big outcome. But as we've mentioned, we have over, I think, 100 folks on this call today, but we'll only be selecting 30 ambassadors. So what does that mean if you're not an ambassador, but you're still really excited about this? We still want you. We still absolutely want you to be a part of this community. It may just be that you might be wanting to do something and there's, 13 other people in your town that all want to do this. And so we'll have, a reasonable vetting process to make sure that we're finding people to be ambassadors that really have capacity to extend this message to broader communities and that reflect different areas geographically across California and different perspectives on 30 by 30 throughout California. So if you're not a part of this, you still may be a really impactful part of the ambassador movement, but we may ask you to team up with somebody else in your local area or someone affiliated with, maybe a topic that you work within, and hopefully you can be a part of their united community of 30 by 30 and possibly attend the training that they might put on, in, San Diego or Bakersfield or wherever you may be. So we still would love all of you who are enthusiastic about this to stay involved and stay in tune with this. And there's room for everybody to participate at one level or another. So that's the main, overview of our logistics. This is just a really cool opportunity to be a part of something bigger than your single organization, your single park, your single agency. And I think we're all really excited to see what our community can, create over the next few months. So I'm going to be ending it right here, and hopefully we've answered a few questions, but I know there are a lot more questions out there, so I'm going to stop sharing it and sharing my screen and turn it back over to Madeline and Megan to start addressing any questions that we may have.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth, Cleo, Martin, and Mike. Really appreciate you all sharing about what this 30 by 30 Ambassador Program is and how people can be involved. We're really excited about it, and I hope this webinar has made you excited about it too. So I'm gonna, if you have any questions, please do put them in the Q&A, and we'll be sure to get them through that channel. The chat can sometimes be a little hard to read, so the Q&A is just more an efficient way to get your questions seen. So the first question I'm going to start off with, and I think this will be a question to Elizabeth to clarify, are the volunteers who work for agencies like state parks or CDFW, are they eligible to apply for this program?
That's a great question. I mean, I think if you're a volunteer working in, one of our state park systems, every location has a different scenario of the level of responsibility and oversight and, commitments that that they're involved in. So I would ask that you talk to your park superintendent or interpretive program manager in your park and see if there's somebody else that may be taking this on, or if maybe they really want to champion you to be the voice of this to organize a larger area. So it really just depends on your ability to commit time, energy, and also be able to organize a whole bunch of other people.
Awesome. And Martin, is there anything you want to add from the CDFW perspective?
Yeah, I think I would just say that, people can be organizers from many different backgrounds and in many different classifications. So just because you're not a supervisor or not even a lead person does not mean that you can't be a good organizer of your colleagues and community around you. So we're really looking like holistically as we'll be evaluating the different applications to find people from a wide variety of classifications, backgrounds, organizations, and geographies to be part of the ambassador program.
Awesome. All right. Another question we have is, are there any, is it okay for a state employee to use this as paid time? Like they won't have to have it be volunteer time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can answer that. I mean, if you're a state employee representing, your state agency, then this absolutely should be a part of your work time. I believe we have some, sticky situations if you're volunteering to do something that aligns with what your job duties already are. So if you have questions about that within state parks, feel free to reach out to me directly or chat with your supervisor about it. But yeah, if this is something, if you're in a situation where you're not sure about that, just please open up a conversation with your team to see how much time you're allowed. And also, I will say there may be a situation where maybe one person is like the ambassador, but maybe you have like a team of a colleague or two and you're all going to buddy up and share the load on this. So that's why we say, if you're selected, think about your team and your allies. So even if you are the ambassador, you can share the load with your local community.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. We have a really good question about somebody who's asking about ADA accessible training. So could you speak to if that will be included in the curriculum and how we might think about that in the training that we're developing?
I don't know if anyone else wants to take that. I mean, I will say, so there are two levels of the training here. So the ADA training will be at the California Natural Resources Building in Sacramento, which I believe that training experience will be fully ADA accessible. And we'll have questions on the form if there's anything we want to discuss about accommodations or things that might make the training, most accessible to folks. And then the, second phase of this, where it's within your own park or organization, then we would ask that you to work within the expectations of your community to make that possible. I would think that everything within this would have options for various levels of accommodation for all the different things that we consider. So yeah, we're not going to, make it any more restrictive than we need to be.
Certainly. Another question we're getting, I'm seeing a couple times in the chat, is about funding. And I'm happy to take this one. So is there funding available for folks to travel to this training or to sort of pay a stipend for this training? And we currently do not have funding available for this. However, we would like you to go ahead and apply if it's something that you're interested in and you don't have the funding. We can do our best to look for resources, but we do want to be clear that right now we do not have dedicated funding available for this. So to be able to travel and to be a part of this funding or to be a part of this training, the expectation right now is for folks to have their own funding for this program. Maybe that could change in the future if we have if we're able to find funders and have a really successful cohort. But since this is our first time that we do not have a dedicated funding source available. All right, the next question I'm getting a couple different times in here is asking a little bit more details about what types of materials and things that we might expect to get out of the training. So for example, will there be items that from coming in person that people can take back, like printouts or stickers or things like that? So either Martin and Elizabeth, do you want to share more about some of those tangible items from the training?
Well, I can start. And I mean, I will actually say this from CDFW's perspective, we are a non-print organization. So our priority will be handing off to each participant a suite of digital communication tools, really. So we're talking things like PowerPoints, social media toolkits, talking points, those kinds of things that you can take and then deploy on your own. There may be some opportunities for some cool swag, but I don't want to promise anything. Well, Madeline, you're muted.
Okay.
Apologies. Another question that's out there is there a minimum number of people that these trainers will be expected to reach from their application process?
Yeah, I can speak to that. And, we're sort of building this, as a pilot project this year. We're going to learn as we go. But just, my bias experience, similar to Martin, we've been working in, park systems in California for, 2+ decades. And, my initial thought is, if you could train 30 people, I'm imagining if I'm in like a park district or a place, a nature center or museum, I might have a staff of like 5 to 10, and they might have volunteers of like 20 to 200. It wouldn't be too much of a stretch for an ambassador in a county or two counties to reach 30 trainees with information on this. And then, my aspiration of like, each ambassador connecting with like 1,000 people or so. I mean, you could have a 30 by 30 pop up in front of a visitor center in a single day at a busy visitor center. You're going to see 1,000 people walk through. Or maybe you're going to do 10 guided walks. It's really those of us that are in like the managerial hats of being used to seeing a lot of statistics of what interpreters and educators do. I think those numbers are pretty reasonable, knowing that this is something that would be embedded to existing programming. You may be doing similar work anyway, so this is not asking someone to go out and create, 50 new programs. It's just to recalibrate how you communicate about these types of messages when you are doing the work that you already do. So that is like my personal aspiration. I think every ambassador should be able to reach about 1,000 people in their area or more through the work of their collective team.
Awesome. Well, we do have a question that I'm going to take it as more of a suggestion because I think it's a really great idea. Is can we post a list of the ambassadors once they're chosen so that people can reach out and learn more in the case they weren't selected? So I think that's a great idea. We'd love to celebrate the first cohort that's selected, and then also make sure that those are folks people know how to connect with. So that's a great question and a great idea, and something that I think would be really great for us to post on our website once that selection is made. So thank you for providing that. Martin, there is a very specific question to you about the author of a book that you had mentioned. So when you get the chance, it would be great for you to share that information with folks so that if they want to go look up those resources on their own, they can. Great. Well, another question is, how do we plan to stay connected with folks? We had a plan laid out for folks who we expect to be in this cohort, from the training to the follow-up. But what about folks who aren't selected? How can we keep in touch with them on this process as we're moving forward with it?
So I think that's going to definitely be a significant part of our discussion on March 3rd as we get to know our cohort and kind of the roles everybody comes from. We will only have the one in-person moment. We'll probably have at least one, Teams or Zoom call in the months ahead, sort of reconnecting and recalibrating. And then we'll be discussing as a team, there may be periodic checkpoints. You might not see like all 6 or 7 or 8 of us on every single call, but we're going to have emails that we share, and digital web space where we can connect with each other, and we're going to try to see what works best for our audience, just as we expect you to develop your training for what works best for you. So we have some plans, but are absolutely open to adapting based on the needs of our cohort.
Awesome. And then we had a question asking, will there be more cohorts? And I can take that in the sense that this is our first time trying it, and we think that would be a great idea. We'd love to have more cohorts. So we will learn and grow from this year, and assuming we're successful, that would be a great path forward. So we hope that you will try this experiment with us as we are kicking it off, in hopes that it can be a lasting program for others to be able to go through this training. So I have a question for both Elizabeth and Martin. What are you most excited about in this upcoming program?
Maybe I'll take the first shot at that. Interpreters talk a good game. We talk a lot about inspiration and engagement, but it's rare for us to have an opportunity to directly link to actual conservation goals that are so impactful as this one. And so I'm really excited to provide an opportunity for interpreters to show our muscle and to show how we can actually be more than just part of the long-term conservation solution, but to actually make a real world difference in a very short period of time. Like we're talking 4 years to 2030 to conserve millions of acres in California. And that requires engagement with a lot of people. And I think interpreters are primed to be part of that solution. And so I think this is really our opportunity to show what we can do.
Yeah, I would echo that. And I would just say I'm so excited to see how people will put their unique spin on the experiences and approaches of infusing this into their work. So, yeah, within interpretation in state parks and in a lot of our profession, we talk about being audience centered. And so that's why we're doing this train the trainer approach to sort of give the trainers the basic nuts and bolts. But then we really want you to implement this in the method that is most appropriate for your community and your audiences and reflect the needs of your local communities. So I expect to see a really wide variety of, experiences and contexts and, social media reels and who knows what everyone might be creating over the next few months. So yeah, I'm excited about the authenticity and like really excited to be forming a team of people that often work alone. A lot of us have been like that lone ranger in the woods, and we don't know that we're actually doing something very similar to hundreds, if not thousands of other people throughout California. So this will be one way to connect people with, shared values and shared missions. So I'm excited to build our community and yeah, strengthen our muscle as Martin alluded to.
Awesome. Thank you both for that. Well, I do see we are starting to run low on time. I'm going to ask one more question before I share final next steps. Martin and Elizabeth, if there's somebody on the fence, what would you say to them to convince them to apply?
I think that everything that we do as natural resource interpreters, educators, and community members in some way has a linkage to 30 by 30. Madeline, as you said before, there are so many different ways that Californians can connect with the 30 by 30 movement. Everything from advocacy work to working with nonprofit organizations and land trusts to planting native plants in your own yard. And this is our opportunity to kind of stretch what we do and think holistically about our own small piece of the puzzle and how it can link to this much greater movement. When we're all part of it, the sum of the parts are much greater than the individual components.
Yeah, well said. I mean, if anyone's on the fence, I just really, yeah, I mean, there's logistical considerations, think about your genuine capacity and if this is something you're willing to stay committed to in terms of, maybe answering some emails and training others, checking in and recording their stats, finding ways to communicate back. So, that may not be your role in an organization, but even if you're not in the 30 ambassador cohort, can absolutely be a part of this. So I know there's a lot of volunteers and folks on this call that may not be necessarily in that position where they can direct the work or commitments of others. But we, definitely think about your role and your capacity, but then also just really think about, the challenge of our time. If you're thinking like, maybe I could do this, I don't know if I'm the right person. A lot of us in this field of, environmental education, you really know that the biggest threat to our environment is not so much a specific, industrial action, but it's the disconnect between humans and nature. And a big part of this is increasing access and providing a sense of welcome and belonging. So if you know that you're in a role where you can do that, you don't have to be the expert on every fact and data point and the science, but if you're really good at building relationships and cultivating community, then this is probably the right commitment for you. So just keep that in mind. We hope that you have, the logistical, capacity, but also the like emotional, readiness to be involved and put your heart into this.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Marnin and Elizabeth, and to all the speakers today for this great idea and helping us really bring this idea to life. And to all of the future 30 by 30 ambassadors out there, thank you so much for joining today. Nature really needs you, and now's the time. So if anyone has any follow-up questions that didn't get answered today, we did put an email in the chat. Reach out to us at californianature@resources.ca.gov, or if you know any of us individual, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to answer your questions and help you apply for this program. The website will be updated after today's webinar to have a recording of this webinar so that you can share it with others if they weren't able to attend today, as well as apply for the program. So the application will be live on our website as of today, and the application, as a reminder, is due on January 28th, with the expectation of letting people know if they've been selected for the first cohort the first week of February, to hopefully allow folks time to plan that travel here to Sacramento. So we're really excited about this program, and we hope you will apply. If you decide not to apply, but are still very, very interested in 30 by 30, please do check out our website and sign up for our newsletter. We have another webinar upcoming on January 22nd from 10 to 11:30 a.m. That one's about showing up and counting for 30 by 30 and exploring the really cool stories of what does count towards the 30 by 30 goal and the different types of partners that we work with to achieve this goal. So if you want to learn more or be a part of this movement from now moving forward, please join us for that webinar as well. So again, big thank you to everyone for joining us today. Reach out if you have any questions, and we hope to have a really successful program for our first ever 30 by 30 ambassadors. Thanks, everyone.